Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast. I love this time of the year. I love the sense of newness and opportunity and possibility that comes at the start of any year. But it can also be a time of frustration. In an earlier episode, I talked a little bit about what I did to kind of get over my funk and move into possibility and excitement. And I wanted to kind of build on that theme today in around how do we turn the ideas and the vision that's in our mind, how do we turn that into reality? And I thought, who better to invite onto the podcast than Tony Ebel? Tony is a long-time guest. I think he's been on here 4 or 5 times. I wanted to have Tony on here because he is literally a magician when it comes to making things happen, getting stuff done as well. And sometimes when I look at Tony, I feel like there must be 4 or 5 of him. But not only does he have a wonderful practice, a great coaching program, but he's also a Butte family man as well, and he looks after his health along the way. We talk about how Tony begins his planning, his goal setting with a theme. Tony shares why he thinks it's really important at the moment that we don't plan too far ahead, the importance of flexibility. We had a great chat on how when we're wanting to turn what's in our mind into reality, that we need to engage our team in it. And Tony shares about how he engages his team. And we had a fantastic conversation in around the importance of the invitation and partnerships, not only with engaging your team in the vision of your practice, but also how that also rolls into the conversations that we have with our patients as well. So I love this conversation. I learned a lot from it, and I think we can learn a lot from people that are doing extraordinary things as well. So if you find this time of the year frustrating, if you've had a love-hate relationship with goals, if you've always struggled to kind of make things happen and follow through, then I think you're going to really love this episode, because maybe you'll get a different spin on how it is that you can turn what's in your mind into reality as well. Let's chat with the amazing Tony Ebel.
Welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast, where we guide natural health and wellness experts through the pitfalls of marketing. Each episode, you'll learn simple, effective, easily actionable, and heart-centered marketing strategies. And here's your host, Angus Pyke.
Tony Ebel, welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast. How are you, brother?
Dude, I am wonderful, straight in the middle of winter in the US of A.
I have major envy of your newest addition to the family, the 4-wheeled version as well. Has it got a name? What is it? Is it a Polaris kind of?
Yeah, it's a Polaris Ranger, but the first one we had previously was a Honda. The name of it was a Pioneer. The Ebel kids decided that the names are a little too soft for the level of life we use it, so they named it the Raptor. So
the
its
Raptor.
name is the Raptor. Yeah.
I love it. So for those of our listeners that don't follow your Instagram, tell them about what the Raptor does and what it is and what you've been doing with it recently.
Well, what I do with my day jobs, I love immensely, right? Pediatric and family chiropractor in the practice, training, teaching, Zoom, action for other chiropractors. But then when I'm not on there, I grew up on a farm. I grew up outside. I grew up with 3-wheelers. The fact that I'm alive is tremendously, in my favor. Yeah. So this thing is a 1,000cc Polaris Ranger. It has everything I don't need, like GPS and air conditioning and a stereo system that makes all my old neighbors grumpy. And we got goats and donkeys. So it's a work vehicle. And then after I get done doing chores, I usually crank up some rap music and just haul ass around the farm and, just make my wife a little upset.
It really what it is a man toy.
It's all the way.
I was laughing with Lauren yesterday. I have an electric skateboard, which I love belting around on, right? And we were out getting some ice cream last night, and we passed this guy that zipped past on the same board that I did too. And she goes, "You know what's funny?" She goes, "The only guys I see on electric skateboard are 45-year-old men." So I said, "Yeah, exactly." I said, "That's for a couple of reasons, hon. It's a midlife crisis, and these things are so freaking expensive. Kids can't afford them." Like that's the other thing.
This very, 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 very true. When I got this new toy, Midlife Crisis Happiness Creator, Christina was like, "Was it much more than the previous one?" And I was like, "No." Yes, it was.
And I'm totally okay with things bringing joy. I know that, I don't like to buy a lot of things, but I like to buy things that there are some things that do bring me joy. I kind of understand where they fit in the context of stuff like that too. So I don't believe some of those posts that you sometimes talk about that, cars won't bring you joy. I'm like, you're buying the wrong car, man. Like, if you see my car, it brings a lot of joy. So,
True.
we got some really important stuff that I want to talk about today. And I can't think about anybody else that I would rather be chatting about this stuff. This episode will come out certainly first quarter. I think it will be sort of February by the time it comes out there as well. It's a time of the year that many of the listeners have already set goals, New Year's resolutions. They're thinking about what they want for the year ahead. And they're coming off a platform, myself included. I posted a little episode about this recently, where my mind tricked me that 2021 would be a lot different than 2020. For some reason, I fell into the trap that thinking as it ticked over from December into January. And so it hasn't been. In many places of the world, it's the same. Sometimes in a lot of places, it's worse. We're exhausted. And there's a sense of, with many of the people that I'm coaching, I'm speaking to, of what's the point? Like, can I really make a difference with this? With the people, I felt like I was making a difference to my community, but so much of this now seems above my pay grade. Like, there are people making decisions in around me, whether I can go to work, not go to work, all those kind of things there too. One of the things I love about you is that you have a gift of turning the imagined into reality, making stuff happen as well. And so I want to talk with you and find out what your plans are for this year and how you are going to take the imagined and turn it into reality this year.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. Yeah. I think a lot of folks start in this time of year when they go after their goal setting, two super common things that we're talking about here today that really most everybody does, especially probably that's going to dig in and listen here, right? They know that I should, one, set goals. So I'm going to put numbers and I'm going to put achievements and I'm going to put goals out there. And then another very popular thing that's kind of recently become popular is kind of choose a word of the year or a theme or something around that. The problem is no matter which of those or both of those that you do, people kind of just do that. Then they're done with the process. Mm-hmm. They don't actually flesh out the exact action steps. And it's not just how or what they're going to do to achieve these goals or bring to life that thematic, because the theme on a piece of paper and a passion planner, what a worthless, it's a word written down on a piece of paper, right? Bringing all of this to life, yes, is my absolute obsession for myself and for others. So our story with the practice on this year really went from, obviously last year was nuts, like just upside down. It was a wild time for us. The 6 months prior to February of 2020 was an absolute eruption. We had never grown so big and grown so fast. So it was like lightning in a bottle season. So when we had the shutdowns, it didn't just take what was kind of ordinarily there. It took this extraordinary moment and just bloop. So when we finished up, still only down like 7-8%, you should run up and down the streets on or ride your skateboard to the Polaris screaming happy, right? Yeah. But pausing with that, I mean, we're growth oriented. I'd be lying if I said I could look at that and trick my brain and go, ooh, it was salty, right? Yeah. And I was starting to kind of let what we were talking, I was kind of just letting a little bit of what so many other people, I'm like, oh yeah, but, like my two least favorite words to start a sentence with. Yeah, but, or well, but. And so we had our team meeting in December where we're looking at the year ahead. And when we went around and we asked our team, that's how we start every one of our annual meetings, like, what are our W's? What are our wins? Let's not worry about what we want to do next or what we got to fix. Like, let's celebrate. And it was harder to do that this year. Okay. One of our CAs, Rebecca, said, you know what I'm most proud about? We did not lose our way in here. So everybody listening, those last two words matter most. In here. Like, we stayed joyful. We stayed grateful. We stayed confident in the innate neuroimmune system. We told the truth to our patients. We did not bend over and, we stayed the course. And we also stayed empathetic too. We didn't lose our minds and kind of rage against the machine as just a few Americans have here recently, right? And so that translated. So here's where this all goes for the listener. That became our theme. Like, you're damn straight. That's what we were able to do. Now we need more of it. So the theme for us this year, that then will be the energy that will allow us to, that turns into strategy, that will allow us to achieve our goals, is in these walls. So the front of our planner, we do a custom planner every year for our team, and it says hashtag in these walls. And what that means, and what I would share with everybody is, right now at the beginning of the year, especially this year, it's a great time to truly not just tune out all the stuff on the outside, but don't miss the greatness that's happening on the inside.
Yeah.
Look at the life your patients are living in contrast. It's not a judgmental approach. It's not like, look at us, flashy wow. It's like, look at the contrast. It's not been an easy time for all the families and the people we take care of, but yet they smile and they're joyful and they're healthy and they're kicking ass in here. And being in here is that sanctuary for them, because it's abnormal in a good way to the rest of the world. So that drove us to come up with two things. One, make it even better for them. What else can we do? How can we add to that? How can we make their experience? So we kind of went all Joey Coleman again, right?
Yes.
How can we make their experience even more freaking amazing in these walls and do more for them? Not rest on our laurels, but say, if it's that much shittier out there, it's got to be that much brighter in here, right? More than ever. And then obviously it turned us into our marketing mojo too. And it's like, well, it is freaking great in here. This is a sanctuary. This is a hope dealership. Let's get more people in here because they deserve to be in here now more than ever.
So the first step here, and what's kind of different from what lots of people do, is that you guys have begun with a theme.
Yeah, we did.
That's what is there too. The second thing too, because I want to talk about this too, is that you have managed to get great buy-in from everyone on your team, which is a team of how many?
15.
Right.
15. Yeah.
So how would you suggest, our practitioners that are listening to this, some of them might have teams of 15, but many of them are probably a little smaller than that too. Because how do you go around, one, how important is that buy-in?
Yeah,
and
perfect.
then two, how do you get it?
Yeah. So, in a right mode, we are very concerned with helping others. Like, oh man, if everybody else in the community just knew about the principles in Life Without Fear and neurology, but we get out, we trip ourselves up. We trip over our toes so many times because we're so hungry and obsessive about getting that out there. What we have to do is do it in the right sequence. We got to handle our own stuff. What I've watched a lot of chiropractors do is lose their own minds, with everything that's going on. Now, if they've internally, right, ADIO, if that I is a chaotic mess, then everybody connected to that person is going to be. So first off, there's kind of a step backwards, which is like, stay calm, chiropractors. Look and, really, really, really draw that in and quiet the noise. When you do that, when you quiet the noise and you avoid the chaos, you actually open up bandwidth to be even more creative and an even better leader. Yeah. And then you nailed it. I'm glad you brought it up, because we were not ever going to hold the line for our patients if our CAs and our docs got caught up and consumed by this. And I'd be lying if there wasn't a moment or two where one of my docs or two, there's a little, they were ready to, they weren't going to run into the building per se. They're not bad. Okay, that's a bad joke, too soon. But they're not bad. But they might have had and I had to be like, especially in these walls. Yes. I had to spend some more time as a leader this year, and in a great way, pull my homies aside and be like, not today, not here, not for our patients. You know what? After 6 p.m., if you're just not here, is all I'm saying. So we really, really did. My team needed me to stay center point focused in these walls and be the example. And then I needed to be there for them if some of the chaos was catching their family, catching their loved ones, and kind of sticking to them. I needed to be there inside the walls of the practice to make sure that they stayed clear of that. And then by us all staying in our lane, our patients could adhere and anchor to us.
I want to just touch a little more on that, because I'm interested in terms of how a lot of chiropractors have got really self-righteous throughout this time. And because many of us have had very different beliefs, philosophies internally from what we've had going on there too. What I've seen that self-righteousness lead to mostly is anger.
100%.
And then that anger then, I'm yet to see a lot of examples of where that anger has been productive anywhere as well there too. And obviously you have seen members of your team heading down that path. How have you been able to spin them around? And if you're listening to this too, maybe it's not to your team members, but maybe you've really felt that way and you're wanting to get back on purpose again there too. So how have you dealt with that level of self-righteousness that's so tempting?
Man, this is important here. Yeah. And I wouldn't say that it was easy per se, but looking back on it, there's again, strategic, there's steps that we took to this. One, it's going to sound like a cliche answer, but I'm definitely going to start there as step one. We are really so clear in our vision, and I really mean vision more than our goals. By accomplishing our mission, our vision, we will check goal boxes along the way. So it's out there, and it's forward. It's in the future. We have to. So here's where I'm going with that. It is absolutely required of us to every day, every week, every month, and year be in forward motion to achieve our obsession of our vision. By being required to constantly be moving forward, it makes you really aware of not getting blown sideways or backwards. And so that's exactly what I've seen via anger, self-righteousness, ego, the desire to be right instead of effective. I have seen a lot of people go sideways and backwards, and I've spoke to them, and their practices are hurting. There's a direct reflection of that direction. So being forward obsessed, like we did a fun exercise. My wife led this. It was from an Ed Milet podcast. And it was like, when are you at your best self? And it was an exercise. The guy he was interviewing, I can't remember, but like literally think of like an action figure. Like draw yourself out. So we did that as a team in 2019. And oh man, if you could see the picture of my stick figure, I am a terrible drawer, it turns out. Okay. I'm future man. That's what I came up with myself. Okay. Like I have to be moving forward. I have to be doing something today to make the future better for my kids, my profession, and the world. Like that's just my daily requirement. Right. So that also adds to the requirement of we can't go sideways, not for a moment. Like it's just not allowed to go sideways, let alone backwards. And because my team, their requirement is to be, and what they're amazing at is being bought in on that vision. When they started to float sideways, I didn't tell them they shouldn't or they couldn't or like try and like make them wrong. I just refocused them onto the vision. And I said, listen, if we don't keep moving forward and stay solid, what's going to happen to our peeps, man? They leave here and they're just freaking caught up in the vortex, right? Of all this bullshit. Like this 10 minutes in here has to be better than ever. It has to be more solid, more future focused, more centered than ever. So do we. So it actually galvanized us. It really actually made us better at our job in every way this year. And maybe the numbers in the immediacy haven't reflected that yet, but you can bet they will.
Yeah, I like that. I want to kind of just clarify a couple of points there too. So, and whether this be that we're talking to ourselves or a team member there too, I think it's just powerful that first of all, don't make them wrong. Empathy and compassion. I get it's difficult times at the moment there too, and your belief systems might be very different from what's going on in the world. And then the second thing too, to invite them into a better future. And some team members might be up for that, and then we have to be really open to the possibility that some might not. In which case, there's another journey for them at the moment. We need to acknowledge and love and support them in that next part of the journey there as well. So you have rallied the team. You've decided that, our theme this year is in these walls there too. What are the steps that happen next that take that from being a really cool hashtag and a theme that's on a fancy diary into what that looks like inside our practice?
It hangs on the theme forward and into strategy with that hangs on the word you just shared with being invitational, with inviting, right? Yep. So I've said the phrase like this or this exact phrase to my patients, almost every one of them as they're starting care for years. Like this is not a dictatorship style practice. Yes. You're probably used to that in medicine. Like you show up to the specialist and then you're just supposed to shut up and do what they tell you to do. Well, we're a specialist, we're experts, we've earned our way there. And the way we've really earned our way there is by forming partnerships with our patients and working together for a better future for your kiddo and your family. So what we really then did is we took this theme, and we knew that if they stay with the thinking and the doing of the outside world, they will move backwards and sideways as well as patients. So we said, so how can we share this message with more of them? So we actually started internal, right? We're like, okay, we're maybe not ready to curate this. This is actually how I test out all new things, right? Test it on the people who already love you most. It's tested with your patients. You've got a better buffer zone, right? For them to be like, yeah, that makes sense. I love that. Or like, no, I don't know what the hell you're saying. And so we went inside and we took what we do every time this year anyways, and we took what we call our gift of health, which is our internal campaign, which again, it's lame as a name, gift of health, right? And a lot of internal campaigns are, but you can unlame them with energy and thematics. And so that's what we did. We really centered the gift of health conversation of saying, we know that your husband is getting obliterated by the chaos and the exhaustion of the world outside there. They're not in here yet as part of your family wellness plan, and you're experiencing this. This is the time right now that you get him inside these walls. So we got extra gusto kind of around that message. And we really, really cranked it into an internal campaign and centered that theme, and then we made it simple. You got to call people to action, but it can't be too big. And so we really made it simple and said, just get them in here, get them in for their exam, for their scans, and for their connection and consultation with us. And we'll take it from there. So we really bite-sized it. We gave it a pretty big vision for the family and the friends who are missing out. Like, it sucks out there. They're exhausted. I'd love to talk about that today too. In marketing lingo, there's no better word working than the word exhaustion for children, for everything. Like it's the word of the day right now. And so we tagged that to this theme. We put it in there. Once we had it dialed in, here's the last step with internal, and we saw which phrases and kind of, again, not scripts, but like metaphors and analogies and conversations were really making things happen, and that mom would get her husband scheduled or would bring another family in. We then took that package of wording and we put it into our direct offer ads and our Facebook ads. And I rewrote an entire new flywheel of both pediatric, prenatal, and parent-based ads around this conversation of, you're exhausted, you're tapped out, you can't stand what's happening, but you don't know where to turn. Turn here. It's different here. It's a different way of doing things in here. And so the whole move of the ad is like, don't think too far other than just get your ass through the front door.
Yes.
And we'll take it from there.
But he's so cool that inside, because I know that lots of the listeners and myself to a certain extent, they too will be wanting to know, like, exactly what did you say to the people, like, and how did you say it, and what's the script, all those kind of things. We've all heard before that when it comes to communication, the numbers always change, but let's just say probably less than 10% of it is the words that we're actually saying there too. So if you're listening to this and you're tempted to want to know what are the words that Tony said, I don't think his success came from the words. I think because they tried lots of different things. It's not that they don't have an impact. I'd say it is 10% there too. But when the words are coming from, which is, it's tough out there, it's exhausting out there, but it's safe inside of here. Regardless, even if that's just what you said, even if it just sounded a bit kind of lame there, but if it's coming from service, if it's coming from I love, it's an invitation. That's what we want. Business has changed a lot across it. We want invitations and partnerships in everything, in all things. There was a time there that we didn't care who was the CEO of Coca-Cola and McDonald's there too. But I want to know about Jeff Bezos. I want to know that. I want to know who the brand is. I want to be in a partnership with them to some extent as well. So, I want to just remind too that, and myself as well, is it's, the intention behind it is what has such a huge kind of impact as well. And
that's been a great theme you've been talking about. And I just want to help you continue to bring it out to your audience. Like, it's not, in today's world, especially, hiring somebody to write and print your killer ad is dead. right?
Yes.
You are the killer app. Your personality, your passion, and all the different makeups work, by the way. There's no required personality character trait that's going to work. They all work, right? Because they're authentic and they're true and they're you. But that is required. A sample of that is I'm a farmer. Like the more electronics that are on things, the more I'm like, ugh. I've never had any desire to buy a Tesla. Okay. Zero. None.
Yes.
Now, though, Elon Musk continues to put and he's got a chiropractic lineage, right? So I gotta believe that there's some of that to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Elon Musk is putting some stuff out there that I'm like, I feel you, bro. You feel me. I'm gonna order a Tesla. So again, I'm still not gonna get the car because that's still a little too fancy for my farmer ass. But I am gonna get a Tesla battery because I've got a whole guest house and office and everything else. So I would have never made that move. I had thought about it and it never even went past a single thought. I'm going to take action on that this year because I feel like I know him and he's seeing what other people are going through and saying, here's where I am. It may not be for everybody. And then on that thought too, I don't want people to take this, what we're talking about, too far. In these walls does not mean, my mentor, Dr. Cody, he shared this story. He's like, when we first got going, we would have a bunch of my chiropractor friends were telling me that they will no longer start to accept patients who have been V-nated, right? I'm very acutely aware of shit. So we won't even say it out. And he's like, this is his words. I'm doing my best Dr. Cody impersonation. He's like, what a dipshit pompous move could you ever make? So you're telling me the kids who are most subluxated and the parents who are most not empowered about where health comes from, you're not even going to let them in the front door, even though in these walls is a much more effective educational opportunity than on their scroll. You're not going to let them in. And so don't take this in these walls, not in my house theme of being like, no, that's what chiropractors have done. That self-righteous thing you brought out. We are still open to those who need us to be open. Okay. Now we're not going to go too far with that and give up our principles and give up our spirit and our strength, but we're also not going to rage against the machine and not give people a chance to learn about the above, down, inside out philosophy that they honestly, I'm a good social media educator, pipeline builder, all that. They got to get knee to knee with me or one of my homies to really get it, right? You got to get in the walls.
And that can take sometimes decades of us being knee to knee. I had it's interesting. I'm often embarrassed to share it, but I like to share it because, my first kind of 8 or 10 years in the practice I'm in at the moment, we pretty much had a rule that says, hey, look, it's you and your family once a week, or we'll find somebody else for you. Now we kind of, I think we did it in a pretty cool way, but it was really clear that's what our standards were. And the aha moment for me was about the 5th year in a row of me being late on my taxes, disorganized with all my financials, it being a schmozzle. And I just wondered that if my accountant had said to me, you know what, Angus, you either get your accounts in on time or I'm not looking after you. And David was so caring and compassionate. He was a leader. He was understanding. And he nurtured me way through the path of me understanding how to support all this. Now, if he had if I had it, but he was there for me. And it was through David that I realized what I was doing in my practice is that sometimes I still believe this day, and to this day, is that one adjustment a year is better than none, and 2 is better than 1. And, there were times in the early days that old BJ would adjust somebody once. That's it. That was good enough for him at that time there as well. Now, I don't know what's right or wrong with regards to that too, but I know as a leader that I don't want to behave that way anymore. And, my mantra for people, I'm talking to new graduates and stuff like that. When you come into my practice, I'm looking at you like I'm your chiropractor for life. Sometimes you'll be active under care and sometimes you won't. And what happens now is that when people reactivate back into care, they're like, oh, doc, I'm so sorry I haven't been. I'm like, dude, but it's so nice to see you here now. Like I'm not going to play angry school teacher. I'm like, I have a hard enough time managing my own health, dude. Like, you're here now, let's get to work. So that it's so tempting to get that self-righteousness. And the challenge is that when we hang around with other chiropractors and they're patting us on the back and they're like, yeah, dude, go get him. It's like, whoa, he's up. Let's, where are we at with that too? And, this year and every year forwards there is an opportunity. One of my, you talk about kind of themes, one of my themes for this year is leadership. And I love invitation and partnership. And I want to add that into what I'm doing there as well. It's an invitation for, me to bring people into our practice, for us to bring other chiropractors in to work with us as well. Is there, getting back onto terms of planning this through, do you guys set little quarterly objectives along with your theme? How do you go about doing those? How do you measure that kind of stuff? How do you keep that front of mind?
Yeah, we absolutely do. And it has flexibility into it. Well, it has predictability into it, and then it has flexibility into it. So, the marketing, your peeps are going to love this part of it. This is super tactical. So the predictability part of it is we track like very detailed. We're talking spreadsheets with colors and everything. So like it's super crystal clear. This is exactly where our new patients have been coming from in the recent and current seasons. Now, there's a very detailed thing that I just finally figured out a new system for this year that I'm so happy about. The awesome thing when you understand how marketing and branding really works is that one hit's not enough. Okay. Like you have to, they got to find you on social. They got to, your Instagram stories needs to create, like nobody comes in and goes, yes, Angus told me to come here just this morning, so I'm here now. Right? It's like, no, like it's years or videos. It's all these things. So that can actually frustrate if you want to run a data-driven decisions, which I do too. I may have started with, Tony, the theme guy, but I'm data-driven like a mofo too. So I wanted to know where they're coming from in all forms. Because what'll happen and what we really fleshed out when the intake comes in via email or our CRM with our ads or a phone call, and the CAs go, how did you hear about us? When you only open a question like that, they're just going to tell you one answer. What we found is it's generally the first one. Angus told me about you. Now, what they're not actually saying is Angus told me about you. I didn't know you from Adam though. So I went on YouTube, watched your video. Then I went on Facebook, followed you for a few months and stalked you. And then I watched that webinar. Then I attended the workshop. And then I asked my kids' OT if you were actually good or not. And then talked to 2 other moms.
Yes.
That'd be a mouthful for her to answer, right?
Yes.
On that.
Yes.
So we have changed our intake paperwork that says check all that apply. And we literally have a spreadsheet that says this is where people are coming from, which tells me as the operator and direction decider of the practice where to put my energy and my money, right? When it comes to marketing. So I'm not just guessing anymore. I'm saying this is the exact distribution. This is working. This is not. Okay. Obviously, if you want an example to take this point home with a case study, obviously last year, our workshops, I've been Perfect Storm talk, right? I think that was our first video, is like how to get people with Facebook ads to talks to everything. Well, they got shut down with COVID. Zoom webinars are about as awesome as like a bicycle compared to my Polaris, right? Zoom webinars can fly a kite. I know everybody's trying right now. They're like, oh, it's all great. Just do a virtual event and a virtual summit. You're trying to connect heart to heart with moms and they're half drunk on a bottle of crap wine at home on Zoom. Anyways, those went down. So I had to have some other lever go up. So as soon as I knew and my tracking was telling me that workshops were going down, I had flexibility to say, well, I better figure this direct offer thing out and make it way better. I better actually start doing something with email. I'm so appreciative to you of your series you did on email, because I was terrible and now we're just slightly less terrible and it's working, right? And doing that. So that's your flexibility going forward. Once you know what's working and what's not, you don't want to stay rigid. This time of the year, do not, it's going to sound blasphemous, do not make your marketing calendar for the year. Do not already know what you're going to do for a talk in October or what your theme's going to be in July. You can get some seasonality and trends from previous years, but keep it flexible. Because if this last 12 months didn't show you how much the world can change on a dime, let us be the voice today on this podcast telling you that it can change on a dime and you need to have flexibility. So that's what we do. So then we set goals. We're like, we want this many new patients. I then break that down. I want our numbers, honestly, if you just want straight up numbers, we go for a minimum of 50 a month. Internal referrals are the flywheel should always be Joey Coleman, raving fan. So that's kind of 50 to 60%. Online and Facebook is another 20 to 30%. I am going to bring talks back. I'm doing them in my office so I can control the scenario and get those 10 to 20%, you know? So we then track that and make sure we're hitting our marks.
Yeah, beautiful. Buddy, how do you deal with the inevitability that will come when you miss one of those marks? Something doesn't work. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, go backwards before we go forwards. Every single time then something didn't work, we didn't push one of the buttons.
Yes.
We didn't pull one of the levers, or we did and we half-assed it. We were like, sent email, you know, and the email was just lame as can be. And it was like, tomorrow there's a perfect storm workshop. It's going to be super. Sign up.
Yeah.
You know, versus the email starts with a kid's story who was stuck remote learning, contemplating suicide, got to our mom came to a perfect storm, changed your life. You're talking about your kiddo, got him in, got him adjusted. Here's his picture, kicking ass and taking names. So it's always on us. Anytime something doesn't work, we always end up finding the subluxation or subluxations sometimes in that system. And then we commit to, as a team and as a system, handling that part of the process. And then it takes care of itself over the next 30, 60, 90 days.
What is the headspace that stops you from going into shame about that? Let me explain more. I want to really clarify this too, because there will be times. So there's times sometimes where I do marketing and it doesn't work because I've done dumb marketing. And then there's times when I do marketing and I think it's fucking cool as. Like I put time into this. I'm like, this is the one, and it still bombs. Okay. So sometimes, you know, and it's still, I've missed the mark. Like, so that kind of stuff there too. There is a tendency at times, I'm better at catching myself this in the past, for me to go into shame, which is I'm a bad person, as opposed to I did a bad thing or I did something that didn't work. Shame always stops me and I never move forwards from there, or it takes you time to get out of it, as opposed to, that didn't work, next. There is as well. What do you do, and how is it that, because I figure there's something brilliant inside of you that has stopped you, because you're so good at just continually doing new things. What's your mindset, your headspace that allows you to do that?
Well, crazy timing. So this is going to come out probably in a few weeks, but this is a very healthy happening right now in my life, that I am salty. So I go to saltiness, if I'm going to use a word instead of shame. I get healthy pissed off, you know? Yes. So it's not shame and it's not disappointment. It's inner awareness and activation of my role in it. I was blessed to have a mother who, every time I pointed the finger at my stupid ass older brother, Brett, who runs, we love him. He runs above down apparel, and I would blame him. She'd be like, well, if you're pointing at him, there's three fingers pointing back at you. And I hated that. Now I love that. Okay. So thank you, Mama. So last week, so a couple of weeks down the road is when this podcast is going to come out. If you're not already in our Facebook group, when you're done listening to this podcast, search Pediatric Chiropractic Today. Those three words, Pediatric Chiropractic Today, under Facebook groups, and get in our group, and then scroll down. It'll take you a bit because it's going to be out. We put something at least every day. But I did a video last Thursday night. You probably didn't even see this yet, by the way. You're looking at me here, dude. No. Last Thursday night, I got skunked. 0 attendees on my first Perfect Storm workshop of the year. No. And I loved it. I was so mad and so happy to be so pissed, because I am 13 years in. I have done the Perfect Storm workshop in a Barbados suit in Rome, Italy. I got fancy. I'm not fancy. God didn't make me fancy, and fancy doesn't really help as many people as just straight honest. So when I got done, I shot a video. I literally got in my truck, Angus, and was going to go home and, wallow in my IPA and just and then I got out of my truck. I went back in the office. I turned on the lights. I grabbed my phone and I did a video for our tribe. And I had no plan like I usually do with a video. I just shared what I was feeling in the moment and what I was going to do about it. Now, once I broke it down, which I did live on that video, I didn't do any Perfect Storm live workshops for the last 8 months of last year because of COVID. I bought enough of the restaurants are shut down in my area. I've always done them as like a dinner talk thing. and succeeded. I've never not put 30, 40, 50 people in a room every month. So by the nature of that being my case history, I got fat and I got lazy, and then COVID. That's kind of a funny analogy because it's actually who it affects. Well, that's bad. But so I welcome my own comorbidities. I did no more organic marketing in my workshops.
Yes.
I built them before social media. It was raving fan moms who would bring a friend, and then that friend's family would start. It was other professionals who trusted in us to do the work who would tell their patients to go there. Once I figured out Facebook, I over-relied on it, and then all this shut it down. The other mistake I made is I did that on a Tuesday night. I launched the thing the week before because I built a whole new funnel, a whole new pipe. You've probably been victim of this before, guilty of this. I was so enthusiastically excited about how awesome my video and my emails and my ads were that I used no patience whatsoever. Like doing a workout where you just roll into CrossFit, like 10 minutes late, grab your toes once and try and deadlift 400.
Yeah.
It doesn't end well, And so that's a very real life example, including the causations. We haven't done it for 8 months, so it's completely died out. Some of that my fault, some of it not. Who cares? I got to handle it. And then I showed no patience. I didn't even have ads running yet. We told maybe a few patients, and we had 4 confirmations. It was an ice storm that night, and I could blame the ice storm, and I'm not gonna. That room will be full next Thursday, which is when the next one is. Yes. I'm just going to do better.
Yeah. And is repetition from a young age with your mum saying, when you're pointing outwards, there's 3 coming back at you from there as well, buddy. It's absolutely one of your gifts. You're now working with a bunch of docs through the Pediatric Experience, through what you're doing in there as well. What are you feeling from them? What do you see the big challenges, mistakes, hurdles that they're going to have to come over to get over to make 2021, a great year for them?
You got it. Well, anybody starting out, their number one struggle, their primary major subluxation when it comes to serving kids and pregnant moms is just lack of certainty, So if you have lack of certainty, you're not quite brave enough to put on the uniform and run on the field, right? And even kind of take a few reps. So you got to get that certainty jersey first. Yes. To even be willing to get on the field. And there is now, especially, because people are like censorship and all this, you got to really, really level up on that. So the Pediatric Experience is built first on certainty. It's the science, it's the understanding, but it's not just knowing the science like, oh, look at me, I'm certified and fancy, and I can say the word amygdala. It's, I can make a mom in 3 minutes or less make sense of chiropractic through that lens, right? That's certainty, which is a card ahead of the horse of the second one. What our docs need right now is an ability to communicate with greater empathy than ever, because it has always been the thing, but no one else is choosing to use it. Everyone else on social and everywhere else is choosing to rage against the machine. So what's awesome right now is when you are heart-centered, your intro of this amazing podcast, and you're very vocal and visual. I want to add that too. Be visual, more pictures of kids, more everything. Then that empathy sticks out because there's so much lack of it everywhere else. And so it's communication. So we train our docs in a pediatric lens, really with Donald Miller. We really go through poke the bear, empathy, authority. And then the final piece, I would say that they really need, they're clinical, I'll handle that next. You got to present a plan. You got to tell people where to go next. We are too confusing. Chiropractic is way too confusing, not only in like what it does and what it solves and how it works, but even if we get down that road, we get kind of, Donald Miller, like second, third base, you still got to say, go here next.
Yes.
And simplify that, right? Yep. I really find, like, as we're training our docs and they're kind of going through this and they're like, telling them to use empathy is awesome. It's a freedom card. They're like, I thought I had to be scripted and fancy. No, not in peds. And then the authority, that certainty they level up, but we really have to get them to put the plan together and make the offer clear. I've struggled with that. I'm not a good offer copywriter. I'm a good empathy and authority copywriter, but I've really had to slow down and work on my titles and work on my offers when I'm writing emails or ads and everything else. And then the last thing I would say to answer that question, I know I always put a lot of answers in one answer, clinically. Subluxation, our patients, this should be kind of the most obvious thing, but don't miss it. The depth of subluxation, we are seeing a surge of what we've said to be as COVID babies. So we're 10 months into it, meaning their whole babies born that are a month or two old. I've always had a specialty in colic and challenged babies. They're coming out of the woodwork right now, more of them, because the medical media machine is making more of them. And we're having to care plan and adjust in a totally different way. We're adding a lot more visits and a lot more duration to our clinical care plans. I know I'm the marketing communication guy, but it all starts with clinical certainty.
Yes.
We're adapting our practice big time. For really all teenagers, you got to adjust them more often because they're just stuck. They're not getting social interaction, motion with remote learning. Everybody's care plan, the volume, we probably have half of that's probably generous. A third of our wellness patients, Angus, who were 1 time a week prior to all this, are 2 times a week right now until we get to the other side.
Yeah. There's a lot more stress in life. I've never seen more broken bodies than what I have in this last 12 months with regards to that. Hey, dude, what a pleasure it's been to chat with you again. We're going to make this a continual thing of 2021 as well. I want to encourage our listeners out there, certainly those amongst us that are chiropractors that are looking after kids and that they want to do a better job of it. Certainly make sure you go and join Tony's free Facebook group. And then I don't do this often. Just join the Pediatric Experience. You can't get too much of Tony. The value that he gives inside of there, the community that'll come, right from kind of better clinical results, certainty, training on empathy, authority, how to build all those kind of things in there too. There's no comparison. It's not a choice of Tony's group or someone else's. It's really, he does such a brilliant job of it there too. So do that. Make sure you follow Tony on all the socials. He's constantly dropping wonderful wisdom. And when he's not doing that, you'll see him belting around in the Raptor, as it's now affectionately known as well. So, buddy, any final words of wisdom to share with the crew?
Yeah, just turn it, follow that ADIO principle. It'll never fade. I think it'll just continue to move to the front of importance for us and then for them. Really, really, really do look at how great you have it as a chiropractor right now, knowing what you know, and therefore then what to do with it for life, for you, your family, and then your patients, and just freaking immerse yourself in that gratitude. And that almost like, I literally right now, my kids are just thriving. And I have this how did I get this lucky feeling, which then immediately instills me into action instead of, like we talked about, the shame and the woe is me. And it's like, man, if it's this good, I got to get it to as many as I can on my time here. So hopefully our podcast today helped you do that, switch from whining to gratitude and from hesitation to action. So that's how you'll make an impact.
Yeah, beautiful. From hesitation to action. That may well be the name of this podcast here too. Dude, love you. Thanks for the lives that you continue to save. See you again real soon.
See you, brother.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work one-on-one with you to apply, implement, systematize, and help guide you and your practice to the next level. Now you can join me on over at adiomedia.com/join. That's adiomedia.com/join. I'd love to see you in there.